pretty happy that I knew as little as I did at the time. And 70% of our business just shut down. You've got to be damn naive to start this type of business.
Yo, this is Nikben. Stores online everywhere.
Sold in 33 countries around the world, challenging the boundaries of resort wear and its crossover to mainstream fashion.
I'm not sure if this is a bit alarming, but
That is alarming.
yeah, it's pretty crazy, right?
Welcome to Apparel Labs Behind the Scenes, where we interview inspiring founders, learning about their journey from creating their brands, launching them, and all the trials and tribulations along the way. Today, we'll be having a conversation with Nick, co-founder of Nikben, where he'll be telling us how he challenged standard resort wear and took his company over the last 10 years to become an international sensation. So here we are today with Nick from Nikben, one of the co-founders. So Nick, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Philip, for having me.
So just to start off a little bit, obviously Nikben was started 10 years ago, 2014.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about Nick before the whole, creation and beginning of all this. Were you always in fashion? What's the story?
No, not at all, actually. So obviously then we founded Nikben back in 2014, as you said. So then I was 27 years old, and I had been working within finance, as you said, for roughly 6 years at 3 different companies, one in Zurich, one in Stockholm, and then ended up lastly in Shanghai. And I pursued, a career within finance, and it suited me, but I didn't feel that I was being entirely true to self, in the sense of at least following the career choice. So I started to become quite curious as to what I potentially could do, as an option, basically. So yeah, I just felt that I needed some sort of change at that part of my life. Yeah.
So you're 27 years old, living in Shanghai, working in finance. You're like, don't know if this is feeling right. I want to start a fashion brand, or was it I want to explore to become an entrepreneur? Like, was it always fashion?
No, not at all, actually. So the actual reason what sort of, really got me into this direction, you can say, is back in 2013, which is 11 years ago, during my last year in Shanghai, Instagram really started to, pop up and it started to become extremely popular. And it did so over just a 3 to 6 month period. And I saw how a lot of brands could, like in an untraditional manner, get great exposure easily through Instagram, right? So then I got thinking, okay, how can I think of a product or, a service or whatever it could, just somehow, let's say a business idea or a business plan or whatever, or a product or service that I can actually somehow expose myself on Instagram and then reach out in a very efficient way. So that's how I started thinking of, this is a channel or a platform that I want to somehow, make use of. But then when the whole sort of fashion, idea came into play was basically actually because I grew up in Spain, south of Spain, in Marbella, and loved swimwear as a kid. So even, when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, when my dad went traveling a lot to Asia, I asked him to, when he came back, can you please tailor a pair of swimwear with flowers on or skateboards on or whatever? And he would get that done for me. So I loved swimwear as a kid, even up until my early teens as well. And, many of my friends, they would wear tracksuits or whatever when they're home chilling, watching a movie. I would sit in my swimwear, basically. Yeah.
That's so cool. I mean, I've heard of people going to Asia and being like, oh, I'm in, Thailand, I'm going to bring back 3 suits, tailor-made, but never custom-made.
It was always custom-made swimwear.
No,
I loved it because, it was it's such an easy way to express yourself. And I loved, the colors and playful patterns and so on. So really that's essentially what got me thinking. But I never actually thought it would materialize into, being something that I would eventually work with. But as, time went, by a little bit, and I was in Shanghai for the last sort of 6 to 8 months, and I felt that, okay, finance is not for me. China is not for me either. I want to move back to Europe. I was actually in a relationship for 4 years back then as well with a Swedish girl.
In China?
Yes.
Was she
was living with me in China.
Oof.
So, and I decided to, I wanted to leave finance. I wanted to leave China. I wanted to I think it was best for us to maybe also, leave our relationship. So there's a lot of change going on, right?
Gotcha.
And in that chapter of my life. And then on top of that, then obviously to start my own business. And so as time in these months passed, I felt that, okay, am I going to actually have a proper look into if there's anything, that I potentially could do in the swimwear industry, But I thought it was such a long shot, and I've never worked in fashion before. And it's just like, how or where do I get started, But so I thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll start off by doing, a very basic market research, plan to sort of find out how is, the competition looking today? What's the market look like, basically? And what I quite quickly, realized was that swim was, or is, you can say, if you look at the swim category by itself, which is how we started out initially, is controlled by a very few brands who have it like as a mono brand, i.e. as one product category, but now most of them have several through resort wear and so on. But at that time, 10, 11, years ago, it was more like mono brands. So you look at like Villebrequin, for example, which is, one of the most established French swimwear brands, been around since the 60s. You have All About Brown. You have also the ones that are within more sort of surf, which is like Quicksilver, Billabong, and so on. Those were like the main players within swim, either throughout, the classical high-end, category, or more like within surf or surf or streetwear, if you like. So when I mapped them out, what I saw very clearly is that all of them were very, very traditional in terms of their aesthetics and the DNA on the prints. So what do I mean by that? So basically, the prints were very, very traditional, very classic. That's classical, not so playful, and pretty boring, okay, in my opinion. So I thought to myself, okay, how come nobody out there on the market is producing swimwear, which is a bit more playful, with a bit more, quirkiness, a bit more of a statement? Because when it comes to swim, it's probably the only apparel that we men dare express ourselves a little bit extra.
It's true. Absolutely.
Even though you may have a conservative dress style in general, right?
I think swim and golf are the two.
Yeah, and well, especially golf, I would say. Back then, probably not as much as now, right?
Yeah.
So that was like, I was surprised, because I was like, I'm sure that you can do, pink, swimwear with ice creams, or green with bananas on, or eggs, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
No one was doing it. And I thought to myself, okay, I've got something here, because I'm sure that there is a market for this, And then I dig deeper, and I realized that, okay, so the brands were either positioned on a very high-end premium segment, or like a mass market sort of lower tier, price point. So really, what there was not so much of were any brands positioned at like an affordable luxury price point, okay? So then I had those two things sorted out. So there's a gap in the market in terms of the price point, and also in terms of this brand DNA aesthetics. Yeah, and that's sort of how I just said, okay, I've got something here, But I have no experience in the fashion industry, but I'm sure that this is a product that will sell. And now I digged even deeper, and I said, okay, how am I going to sell this product? Okay. And then I realized that, okay, damn, there's so many different sales channels here. I mean, you can sell it through obviously your own online store, through other external online, stores. You have department stores, multi-brand stores, you got hotels and resorts, you got travel retail. So you have like 6 or 7, pretty strong sales channels that you could, distribute out your product or brand through. So I felt that I had quite a solid case. But that was all on this sort of idea basis. And that's how it started out.
Yeah. So you've got this idea. You're still living in Shanghai at this point, still working in finance. And over a year, you started kind of piecing the pieces together.
Exactly.
And then at what point, because your designs are so cool. They're so funky. I love them. I like to express myself quite a bit especially when it comes to swimwear. So, the pink ones with the ice creams, and, love it. But at what point do you get a design involved? Because did you ever design any of the stuff yourself?
So that was the thing, right? So I knew that I obviously had quite a lot of weaknesses, and I needed someone to cover up for them, because I would say that I had, a pretty clear vision as to how I wanted the concept and the brand DNA to be. But obviously I had very little knowledge of how to actually design it. So I'm not the most creative guy, maybe. So then obviously I knew that ideally I would need to bring in a partner or just like hire like a designer, to start off with. And then, because obviously it's easier said than done to find, a great partner, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I actually often use this comparison, which is basically like, it's as if you have a good music taste, but you have no idea how to produce it. Okay. So I'm pretty similar there in terms of fashion, right? So I think I've got a good sense of fashion, a good sense for how I want the brand to be portrayed, but I have no idea how to design it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened? I started thinking about, who do I know in my network who has some relevant experience within the field, who potentially could help me out, either put me in the right direction or help me out in my project, right? So I reached out to a friend of a friend. Okay, so a very close friend of mine's close friend. So we had met a couple of times before, at dinners, some party, whatever. But we weren't sort of, we didn't call each other, or we weren't close friends at all, actually. But he was familiar with my name, and so one day I called him up. And actually I was in Bangkok at the time, so for just purely sourcing factories. So I went to China, I went to Thailand. I was doing this all by myself behind the scenes in the beginning of this venture.
Before you even got the designs, you're trying to identify suppliers.
Just going like step by step,
Yeah.
know, and just following what I thought would be the right, way to sort of build this foundation, behind the scenes.
Building out the roadmap.
Yeah. And again, like I was 27 years old, pretty young, had decent experience, and I knew that I could do this for a couple of years. And if it didn't work out, it's not the end of the world, So, but anyways, so then I thought of Benjamin, okay, who is a creative art director. Before he is still then, I guess, but he was working as head creative art director in Sweden's second biggest advertising firm.
Okay.
And he'd done a lot of amazing work for rebuilding, helping sort of making brands a bit sexier or getting a better artistic look or whatever it might be, right? So he was amazing, or is amazing, at all the creatives, all the artwork and stuff that I have no idea about, right? So what I did is, as I said, I called him from Bangkok, and he finally picked up. He was very hard to reach, and I said, listen, I know you're a busy guy. Can I come and visit you? And he's like, what's it about? And I'm like, listen, I'm not going to take this over phone, but I would love to come and see you within a week if it's possible. So he lives in Gothenburg. I'm based in Stockholm. I flew back home to Stockholm. Following day, I took a train down to Gothenburg, and we met after his 9-to-5 job in a cafe just next to his office. And I basically just, pitched him what my idea is. Basically, a little bit about what I've just told you guys now. And he just starts laughing. He's like, "This is unbelievable. I've actually been sitting with a similar idea 2 years ago, but it never materialized because, I have 2 kids. I need this solid, 9-to-5 job, and I don't know how to make, I don't know where to start, basically."
Sounds like fate.
And I'm like, bro, I'm your guy, So that's how, it's just like, it was unbelievable. It's such an amazing, it's an amazing moment and story, like actually how it all, unfolded and how it started out. So we didn't really, we were young guys with sort of a dream and a vision, and didn't really think about any rules or the challenges or boundaries that there might be, or the obstacles that there might be in obviously starting your own business, right?
You never do it.
You can't. That's the thing. You got to be very naive in order to start your own business. So yeah, that's sort of how it actually started out. And you have to stop me if you think I'm talking too much.
No, it's fantastic, mate. Really, seriously, it's great.
Yeah.
Really great.
Okay. And so we went back to his office, roughly 30 minutes after we met. And by that time, the office was empty. We brought out a big whiteboard, and we started, basically like in a movie. So so we have this idea. We're going to launch 9 styles to start off with. We're going to do 3 styles of each type of it's like 3 different aesthetics. So one will be very playful, with, a colorful, playful, and very, how do you say? Very playful and with a lot of statement, right? one which is a bit more sort of in between, and one pretty plain and basic, right? And then we're gonna launch this line, and then we're gonna see which sort of styles take off. So it'll be like a test for us.
So they were three very distinctive,
Yes.
different, and then kind of then see what
Yes, and that would give us like a feel for basically, or an indication for
what direction to lead.
Sure.
Into. Yeah.
And yeah, so it then further on it showed
One
that
out of the three.
the three ones that were most playful and the one with the crazy ones basically,
Nice.
which was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So now, what did he kept his 9 to 5?
Yes, so he kept going for about 2 years, working with his day job because he has 2 kids and,
Of course.
had a pretty good position at his job and pretty good salary and so on. So I knew that it wouldn't be easy to get him, full time. I owned 100% of the company when we started out, but very quickly gave him 30% of my equity. And then as when he then eventually did start full time, and we were sort of 50-50 both of us, I gave him the remaining 20. So we're now 50-50 in the company.
Okay. And it's still completely private, just the two of you, 50-50, 10 years in?
Yes. So we're entirely organic. Yeah. Which is, I would say, very, very rare.
Very rare. I guess it's very, very hard. I mean,
It is.
what I keep hearing and talking to people about is how hard it is to, number one, you've got to keep inventory, and you're planning for seasons ahead. You've got to start manufacturing from the moment that you start manufacturing until it's landed. You're looking at 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So you're keeping all of this stuff on stock. You don't always know what's going to land well, what's going to hit well.
Sure.
How do you, is it credit lines? Is it personally financed? How are you keeping this machine going and growing? Because growth is, I can imagine that over the past 10 years, you've grown quite substantially, right?
Sure. Yeah. So we have. I mean, we've had, apart from COVID and obviously the last sort of year or two, which has been pretty tough as well in general. We've had a very nice growth. You could say a good organic, steady growth, like a school book sort of development. Not like a major rocket, but just like growing by like 35% or 40% a year.
Wow.
On average. Yeah. But coming back to the inventory question there. That is, I would say, obviously one of the bigger risks and, headaches for us, obviously, because what we're trying to do is that we're trying to, be able to be there. And like, if there is any eventual demand online, for example, then we have to have that stock to be able to grow, right? But then we have to take that risk. Yeah. Whereas we also have the B2B side where we're getting our orders from our stores. That gives us a strong indication on what styles will work and not, okay? Because we'll see, okay, so for example, we had 7 or 8 styles, got like 50% of the orders, the remaining haven't. So then we know how to pace ourselves a little bit. But the challenging for us has been, in order for us to grow, we have to make at least 50% extra of the production to be able to cater for that eventual demand that will get online.
Yeah.
Right? Because obviously we want to scale the business. So in terms of the financing aspect, what we're doing is each year we're reinvesting all the liquidity that we have in our, in the company. Instead of giving dividends to ourselves, we're reinvesting it into the company in many ways. But one of them is into production and stock, of course. Then apart from that, we do have, as I said before, we don't have any external investors or owners, but we do work with several financing or sort of like credit companies who help us out to sort of like float the investment or the capital basically. So they give us a loan and then you can pay them back within, let's say, 90 to 120 days.
Perfect. Yeah. So inventory financing.
Exactly.
Tell me something. So you're 2 years in, and then all of a sudden Ben, which is the Ben part of the Nikben, decides to come on full time. You're doing this full time as well.
Sure.
Was there a pivotal point where you suddenly went like, okay, we've actually got something? I mean, obviously you launched those first 3 different lines and there's a bit of interest, but at what point are you like, oh, this could actually be something real? Like, was there a moment, or was there an episode or something that kind of like gave you that big pat on the back and nudged you along?
I would say there were 2 pretty distinct sort of moments for us where we felt that we really had something going and a great momentum, and we were actually, I guess that the collections that we were launching turned out to really have great, response. And again, like Nikben has always been about challenging, the boundaries and the traditional market and everything. So we've taken a lot of risk with our collection and lines and so on, because we've done something that basically is of our own, right? And the first one, I would say, was when we were into solely swim, which we were for the first 2 or 3 years, right? That's when we launched the sushi swimwear, print with sushi.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And they went viral big time. So, and we were, we just kept on selling out and that was just, again, like one of those ideas that we had that was just so outside of the box, and that no one else was doing anything similar. And it just turned out so well, which was cool that our idea actually, got such great response. That alongside with our packaging at that time, where we came up with the idea that all swimwear should come in a backgammon game box.
No way.
Yeah. So when you got your swimwear, you got it in the box, right? And you open it up and there's a backgammon game in there with wooden dices and chips and everything.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And it also, because backgammon originally is from Greece, you can play it on the beach. So it really like made a lot of sense. It was super relevant packaging, but also pretty genius,
That is amazing.
So and that was the first sort of stage where we just felt, because it was such an easy sell for us at this stage. So then we felt that was like the first little breakthrough, you can say.
Yeah.
Yeah. The second one was where we introduced our terry collection.
Yeah.
Which is like, terry is essentially a toweling fabric. So it's a fabric made out of basically toweling material. Yeah. And we launched that in, different shirts, shorts, matching, or you mix and match, or you can match them in the same colors as a set. And we were the first sort of to really push that out in Sweden. And the response was, insane. We created like a hype in Sweden, and basically that's how we really got our name out in Sweden and in Scandinavia, I would say. So those two were the sort of the pivotal moments for us in terms of to fuel us up also, and to like, keep on going and, doing other things, and to actually dare to do things in our own way, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite unbelievable. You go out somewhere and you go out to a beach club in Marbella, and where there's quite a heavy Swedish, Norwegian, but obviously multicultural demographic, and you'll see 1 out of every 5 people is wearing something Nikben, whether it's the terry wear or the shorts, and it's quite amazing how it's really, really grabbed it. I mean, how does that feel? I mean, do you not get quite proud when it must die off after a while, but
it does.
At what point was it when you walked out and you're like, that's mine? What a moment, though.
Right. No, I mean, it's obviously in the beginning there, it was,
taking photos of
we got
people.
goosebumps, and it was like, I mean, for sure, it was very gratifying. It really is it was an amazing feeling. And as you rightfully said, obviously it does wear out a little bit with time, and you get a little bit more used to it or whatever. And you also start, or at least me and Benjamin, we put a lot of challenges, and we have high expectations on ourselves, right? Because I think you need to set the expectations pretty high. So that's sort of part of what we want to see, right? So it's just like, okay, otherwise we sort of get a bit disappointed, I guess. But in the beginning it was such an amazing feeling, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But I mean, now it's, for example, in Sweden, it's, I guess in terms of brand recognition and awareness, we've come pretty far in comparison to other markets.
Yeah.
So like let's say that if you're on holiday in Greece or in Italy or in Ibiza or whatever, and then you see someone wearing Nikben swim, then it feels that extra little good than when it would if I saw it in Sweden, right?
Got you.
Yeah.
And how's that migration outside? Because you're in over 30 countries now?
Sure, yeah. So we have 2 sides of the business, or we're standing on 2 legs. So one is the B2C, or direct to consumer, which is the online sales. And then we have, as you rightfully said, stores in, I think it's roughly 33 countries today.
Wow.
So that's in different shapes and forms. So it's multi-brand stores, department stores, hotels and resorts, and online retailers.
How do you, what's the split? Is it quite?
So in terms of revenue, the split is, and that's something that I would like to discuss and mention later on because it has changed a lot throughout the years.
Yeah.
But at this very moment right now, the split is roughly 65% B2C and 35 B2B. So the online sales is doing really well for us.
That's fantastic. And these B2B, I mean, 33 different countries. How do you contact them? Do you reach out? Do you go to trade shows? Do they come to you, or you know?
Yeah, no. So it's actually it's all of those different options really. So we do a lot of trade shows. Okay, so we work with. With now this just last month we were in Pitti in Florence, Pitti Uomo, one of the oldest men's trade shows, been around for over 100 years. We also did Paris Fashion Week, where we rented a showroom there. And what happens is you meet a whole lot of there's a lot of relevant traffic, going through there, right? So even if you haven't booked any meetings or so on, a lot of people will approach you, right? So where you can meet with potential agents, distributors who could then, again, potentially represent you on a given market, right? So we've been doing trade shows now for, 10 years basically. With the exception during COVID, where sort of 2 or 3 years there was no trade shows going on. So let's say 6 or 7 effective years of doing trade shows, maybe on average 2 or 3 per year. So give or take, let's say that we've done between 25 and 30 trade shows. And during those fairs or shows, we've met a lot of our partners. Apart from that, it's a relatively small circle in the industry, right? So let's say that we start working with 5 agencies or distributors representing us on 10 markets, because many of these agencies, they cover, for example, if it's in Holland, then it's Benelux. So you have Belgium, Holland, Luxembourg. So it's one agency, 3 markets. Dutch, same thing. You have Germany, Austria, Switzerland. It's one agency, 3 markets. So, but then they will also have their network of agencies that they like working with, or they share some brands on other markets with another agency. So it's, it's sort of the reputation, if you're doing well for yourself, and people do start eventually reaching out to us. So it's taken a while, but actually as of last year, we're in a position now where we're getting a lot of requests, whereas before we were the one chasing. Okay. So we're in a good position, I guess. Yes. But of course we're still chasing. We're going to keep chasing, right? But so it's a combination of trade shows, it's requests, and obviously us reaching out, doing our homework, a lot of Googling.
Yes.
Benjamin is an expert on that as well. I'm doing my best, but he's an expert on finding, finding what he's looking for basically, and reaching out, and also a bit of traveling. So we travel quite a lot, and we reach out to all the the coolest stores that we find are relevant for us, where we feel that the brand portfolio that they have makes sense and sort of is aligned with the DNA of Nikben, for example. So yeah, that's basically how we do it.
Very cool. I can imagine in the beginning it must have been a real grind reaching out to people, just the first couple of years, like non-stop.
But it was super difficult, tough, obviously. Again, like we were obviously new and super unheard of, but the whole when we were just doing swimwear the first couple of years, the whole thing with the backgammon game packaging, it was like you brought that to a store. We would before we have a great example when we actually went to Amsterdam, the first trip that we did, me and Benjamin, we rented obviously a bicycle, as you do in Amsterdam. And I think there's still this site around called labelfinder.com. And what you do there is you search for any given city and any given brand or brands, okay? So you can filter out. So for example, in Amsterdam, we search for any store that carried, let's say, Acne or Reigns or Our Legacy or whatever it might be, right? Which we feel are sort of stores that may also, think that we would be a good match for them. And then, so we would then filter that out and we get like 8 matches, okay? So what we did is we called all these stores and then we booked an appointment. Some of them didn't want to see us, some of us did. If they didn't want, we went anyways. And we came there with the 2 bikes, obviously parked outside the store, came in, showed these just 9 pieces of swim, which is nothing. And then just opened up the backgammon gears and done. It's like the perfect gift.
That's
a little bit,
So, going for these first 2 years when you're doing just swimwear, swim trunks, male always, right? Mm-hmm. How did you jump into, where did you get the inspo for the resort wear?
Sure.
because obviously the first one is it's a lot more adventurous and heavy design. Like that's quite a big
the transition,
right?
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, initially when we started out, we thought to ourselves, we're going to keep this simple. It's going to be a mono brand. There's a huge market for it. There's no necessity to go wild and crazy and do like full lines of clothing, etc. Right? But what happened after, I think it was 2.5 years, was that many of our retailers were sort of demanding it from us, that in order for us to get a good placement in stores, we would need to have more than just swimwear. And also it's extremely seasonal. It only works, during a few months a year, unless you're in a microclimate, which where this, but that's not where the big business is, I guess, ultimately. So we came to a point where we realized that we had to grow the business, or grow our selection and our offering, basically. And then we also wanted to be on brand. We wanted to keep the DNA, keep sort of the Nikben vibe and DNA, so that we weren't doing anything unexpected and then people got disoriented as to what we were doing. So we felt that a very natural sort of transition, or the next step for us, was to go into resort wear. And then that was always, as I told you before, the Terry collection. And then also the matching sets in viscose fabric, which now we changed to tensile fabric. So that would be the playful, patterns that you have on shirts, shirts, shorts, and also long pants. Nice. So that's sort of how we basically we were obliged to sort of make that change in order to, keep the business thriving, basically.
It's become such a big part of your DNA. I mean, the amount of, what is the market split now between sales of just swimwear and now all of the
so that's also the fun thing, because so many of people ask me or us like, oh, so how's the swimwear brand going? And it's like, that's how it was. That was 8 years ago. We stopped doing only swimwear, because now swim stands for about 15 to 20% of our total, which is very low. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a very small part of our business.
That's unbelievable.
Yes. Yeah. And not many people think or know that.
No.
Especially in Sweden, because that's sort of the first impression they got was, when we started out, was just doing swim, and that's sort of what sticks to your mind, Yeah.
And have you thought about continuing this evolution of now going more into streetwear and nightwear? I mean, how does this keep on evolving? Because I've seen people out at night wearing a Nikben, shirt, and you're like, what else?
Yeah. No, so I mean, I think there is always an end to. You can't just keep on, developing your brand and like developing and introducing new categories. You got to sort of find, your limits somehow as to what categories you want to stick to, and then develop that instead. Because I think essentially, if we would start doing shoes and eyewear and bags and so on, it's just, well, you never know. Maybe we'll put in 10 years' time we'll be doing that, but I don't see us sort of in that doing that development. I see rather that we sort of maintain the categories that we have today and try to be as strong as we can in each respective category. Because I mean, if you look at streetwear today, it's within what we're doing within streetwear, which is the t-shirts, the hoodies, primarily, that are that's been sort of our cash cow as of lately. There are two categories that you can just keep on developing those. So I see ourselves definitely growing as a decent player in the streetwear industry, because it is a segment or a category that is relatively it's not as much competition as, for example, in sports fashion. Because today, or the last, I would say, 5 years, and especially after COVID, when people are starting to work remotely and from home and so on, people are dressing down a lot more. It's more casual today than it used to be, let's say 5 to 10 years ago, without a doubt, right?
Completely.
So what's happened? Well, sports fashion has grown a lot, right? And streetwear fashion has also, but not as much as sports fashion. So that's the reason why we chose streetwear and not sports fashion.
Got you. Yeah. Mate, that is amazing. Like what a cool journey. Bring it back a little bit to your relationship with Ben. From the sounds of it, you guys have pretty distinctive responsibilities and roles in the company.
Sure.
What's it like having a well, would you consider him a co-founder? Yes.
100%.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah. What's it like having a co-founder? You guys are, I'm assuming, are good mates nowadays. And, what's it like managing that relationship?
Sure. I think, we're very fortunate that we started out in the manner that we did, not knowing each other very well. So it was strictly business, and we didn't have to interfere with any sort of friendship, relationship, anything like that. So, but then it has sort of evolved into being obviously a very strong friendship, because, we speak to each other at least on average 5 times a day and see each other pretty frequently as well. The thing there is that we both have a very, very strong mutual respect for each other, and we treasure and value that relationship very, very high. So, and I think, I'm not sure if this is a bit alarming, but we haven't had one single argument during 10 years.
That is alarming.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, right?
Are you sure that you're communicating?
I'm not afraid to get into an argument, or if I feel that something's not fair or whatever, but
so this is
the thing is that we have had we're definitely not always aligned and are on the same page in terms of ways we want to do different things, but we have that respect that we discuss it and then we find a way forward, right? We don't get into that sort of that we start having this sort of argument or whatever. So it's just I have this huge respect for him and what he does. Yeah. And I think he also has that for me, and it's a blessing, really, in that sense.
I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. So, touching on that point, have you guys ever had like some tough times in the business? Because a lot of times you hear like everything's great with business partners and relationships in general until there's tough times, and that's when people start showing a little bit of another side.
That's when you show your true side, so to speak. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's definitely been highs and lows. It's not been an easy ride. It has not, and it's been due to mostly, I would say, macro factors, external factors such as COVID, and also now I would say even more, the war in Ukraine, which really has messed up a lot of things, especially in Sweden with extremely high interest rates, inflation, and so on. So I would say the latter has been way more harmful for us than COVID. So in terms of the circumstances around us and what happens and the things that we cannot control, that's been sort of the that's made business very difficult for us. But it also has opened up some opportunities for us, because when COVID happened back in 2020, I believe it was, basically all the physical stores closed down, right? And that was at that time, as I mentioned before, today around roughly 65% of our sales are online, but then it was about only 30% of our sales are online and 70% were in stores, right? So what happened? 70% of our business just shut down. So we had to be really, really, really fast at adapting to this, okay? So that also was an opportunity in itself for us to grow on the online business, because we had no other choice in order to survive, right?
Yeah.
So we had to adapt, and we had to do so fast, okay? And the good thing for us is that we're, a relatively small company. We're not very traditional, very untraditional. We're modern. We can easily sort of adapt ourselves again. As opposed to companies like H&M, let's say, or, the big sharks. When this kind of thing happens, what are you going to do when you have hundreds and hundreds of physical department stores that are shut down due to restrictions? But we didn't have that. And what else happened? So marketing back then during COVID, so at Meta and Google and the big marketing platforms, the pricing of ads went down like, 80% or something. Wow. Because there were no companies weren't thriving, nobody was marketing anything. So what happened? We were able to, I'm not sure if it was how much exactly, but it was by a lot, at least 3 times cheaper. Okay. Wow. So what happened? Yeah, we could reach out 3 times more for the same. So all of a sudden we were able to reach out in a way we weren't before during COVID. People were working from home, sitting at their laptops more than ever, and on their phones, you know, because people weren't in the office or people were working from home, you know. So and that just turned out to be a huge opportunity for us that we capitalized on, and that all of a sudden made that sort of transition into B2C online sales being what it is today due to COVID.
That's amazing. And your main online marketing, is that still Meta, Google Ads, or do you do quite a bit of influencer marketing? I know that you do quite a few collabs with some pretty cool brands out there.
Yeah.
So
it's we have different, marketing channels, if you like. Or the one that converts the best, you know, that basically converts business and sales is Meta, and Google Ads also, I would say. We do not work as much with influencers or ambassadors as we used to, because our experience is that it's not doing as well in terms of conversion, and we're looking a lot at conversion at this stage.
Yeah.
Although it is very important to build soft values, recognition, awareness, right? So we have two different types of ads or two different types of marketing strategies. One of them is awareness and recognition, and the other one is basically retargeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so depending if it's retargeting or if it's awareness or recognition, then we do use different strategies. But mainly it is very boring. It's Meta, it's Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads. That's where we put, I would say, 85 or if not more % of our marketing budget today.
And the other 20%, which is more brand recognition, you do a few collabs.
We do, but I wouldn't say that collabs goes sort of into the bracket of marketing spend. That's more of the collab is something separate for us.
Okay.
Yeah. Because then we do like a collection which is just, you know, for that person or that brand or whatever it is, and we also have some sales connected to that, right? Yeah.
So that's a great way to get it out there. And
exactly. For us, it's a dream to with a successful collaboration where there are synergies, where there is a win-win situation, where both sort of brands can gain something from each other. That's obviously the goal, right? And we've done quite a lot since we started out, which has been very, very key for us as well.
That's amazing. Few kind of quick fire questions. So the Nick from 2014, living in Shanghai, about to quit his finance job, embark on this massive journey of becoming this, you know, mega entrepreneur. Some advice. I know it's tricky to give advice because probably 27-year-old Nick does not want to hear it because he's a boss. If you could grab him, go back, what do you wish that you could tell him, or that you knew that you think would help smooth things out? And don't say buy Bitcoin.
Honestly, the fun thing is that I'm pretty happy that I knew as little as I did at the time, because you got to be damn naive to start this type of business. Had I known, in all honesty, about all the challenges, you know, the boundaries, the ups and the downs and so on, I'm not sure that I would have, you know, got into the business, to be honest. But having said that, of course, there are things that I can also, you know, that I have learned from this journey or this process, right, that we're still very much in. That is basically to not get too emotionally involved in I'm not saying everyone is emotional in your business, to try just to have a breather now and again, and to trust the process, and that there are going to be highs and lows. And when you have the lows, not to them to take over your well-being, basically. Because the first couple of years I was very, you know, it hit me pretty hard when we were struggling, you know. So I think it's extremely healthy that you try to sort of put that aside a little bit. That at the end of the day, it's only business, it's only work. You know, it's not the end of the world. It's not your everything. Although that's what you feel that it is when you're an entrepreneur, I guess. And it's also something that I guess is, if you don't feel that way, it's also difficult to succeed, right? Yeah. So you have to have that commitment, but just don't let it get the best out of you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I mean, it's your baby. You see your DNA in it. You see it as a reflection of yourself. If it's not succeeding, you're not succeeding. What have you done? But yeah, any coping mechanisms for dealing with stress nowadays, or what's
Yeah, well, first of all, I've switched off notifications by emails on my phone, so I just go in and check them when I feel like it.
Nice. I think that's healthy. Limit Instagram time.
Exactly, and then I've really just try to cut my working days off, like at 5-6 p.m. And and to try to keep it to like 9 hour work days. Obviously, I do work quite a lot more some days as well. But having done this now for so many years, we've learned during the process and been able to sort of time manage myself in a way that I haven't before, which is very grateful. Having done this now for X amount of years, 10 years. You do learn how to work, let's say smarter and not harder.
Yeah. No, that's great, Wes. Next 5 years, where do you envision it? Where are we going? Are we going to raise money? Are we IPOing? Are we going to move to the US? Where does the vision?
So, yeah, good question. So, I mean, for us, the last 12 months have been the best for us to date, right? So, we feel
that you're going through quite a tough time in Sweden.
Yes. But we did during COVID, and now with the war and everything.
Yeah.
But now, sort of the last couple of months, or especially, things are starting to, you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel again.
Okay. Good.
But also from there's two different sides to look at it. The one is the challenges, all the macro factors that is sort of making life and work hard for you, right? The other is what you actually can affect. So all the micro things, the things that we actually can influence, right? And in terms of what we've been able to influence, and also that we felt that the last couple of months things are starting to get better again. Inflation rates are down, interest rates are down, etc. People are actually starting to purchase again, etc., etc. So I think the combination of all these things have made the last sort of year or so the best one for us, and especially out of what we've been able to control. And that's been, so 12 years ago, we were working with, I think, 6 agents or distributors globally. Now we're working with 15. So we've nearly tripled the amount of partners that we have that actually will work as sales partners or, agents or distributors, which is amazing. And they cover for over 20 markets.
You said 12 years ago?
12 months.
12 months ago.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, 12 months ago.
Yeah. So now, for example, we're working with, we signed with the strongest, by far the strongest agency in France. So they have 3 showrooms in France, one in Normandy, one in Paris, and one just outside Cannes.
Nice.
Covering for the whole market. We have signed a new one in Italy. We just signed one in Greece. Signed new one in Benelux. Last year we signed one in Germany. This year we also signed one in the UK. We're in discussions with a new one in the Middle East, and so on and so on. And these have all basically reached out to us. We've met them. They've come to trade shows. They've come to our showrooms, etc. It's been a long process, but now we have a foundation that we did not have 12 months ago.
Wow.
So this means that the outlook for the next, let's say 2 to 5 years is pretty promising, given that we can still deliver what we're doing and keep delivering strong collections and so on, and that everything unfolds in the way that it should do, right? So I would say in 5 years' time, our ambition is to grow the B2B side considerably. So we would like to have, I think we have a roughly 150, 200 doors today. But we would like to have, 5 years, at least 3-4 times more.
Wow.
We want to become a global player as well. We want you to, not only be in Sweden and see Nikben here and there. We want you to also, when you're in, I don't know, US or in Japan or whatever, you also see Nikben there, right? Yeah. So that's sort of our goal, because I don't see why we couldn't, to be honest. So it's going to be super difficult. It is a dream. I don't know if it's likely, but that's the goal at least. And that's what we're pushing for.
It's exciting for me here. This is my favorite pair of Nikben. It's got a mariachi guy with some skulls. So I absolutely love them, because I do like to wear black bathing suits, but you don't really get many black bathing suits with a funky design on them.
Right.
So thank you for creating these. These are very, very cool.
Amazing,
so, and the quality is absolutely amazing. I've had these for around 3 years or 4 years, and they've gone through a lot. We've put it through the test of time, and they're like bloody new. So brilliant, mate. So, cheers for that.
Very glad to hear.
All right, Nick. Well, thank you so much, mate. This was really, really, really exciting, really amazing. I can't wait to see what the next 5 years are going to look. But if any of this has anything to say, she's going to be smashing it. So I'll be looking for you in Vegas. I'll be looking out for people wearing it at the pool parties there.
Exactly. No, thanks so much, Philip, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Brilliant.
Thanks,
Cheers.
buddy. Thanks, buddy.
Nice one. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Philip, co-founder of Apparel Labs. If you're looking to scale your brand and take it to the next level, please feel free to reach out to us.